In our gospel today, Matthew, who was a tax collector, tells us the story of how he and the other disciples became apostles, which means sent. This comes on the heels of significant miracle healing stories, where Jesus raised a young girl to life, healed a woman who suffered from hemorrhaging for 12 long years, restored sight to 2 blind men, and cast out a demon who made a man be mute. And now Jesus sends them out in pairs and gives them authority to heal. Matthew is showing us that healing, also known as salvation, is God's ultimate why. Why God chose to be born into the world as baby Jesus, and why Jesus sent the apostles out. God broke into this creation to heal it from the sickness of sin. Sin is a force that distracts us, separates us, and distances us from the source of our being. As God is love and the source of all life, as we turn away from God and the further we stray from God, it dims the life in us, like a dimmer switch on a chandelier. It's a sickness because we no longer bear the wholeness of the image of God in our being. You can see overt sin operating on the world stage now, injustice, violence, and war. But covert sin is embedded in our lives. They are hidden, invisible, and hard to detect, and sometimes only God can see the ripple effects of sin across our lifetime, across all our relationships, and its impact on present-day relationships. The simple answer is that we all need healing. We all need God's salvation. And this is God's mission. God desires to restore us to the fullness of humanity made in the image of God. If you ever longed for a better relationship with someone in your life today, that longing is holy. That longing is for the restoration and wholeness of who we were meant to be, and the longing for the pattern of the Holy Trinity in our own relationships. The lover, the beloved, and the love that goes round and round between them. For much of my young adult life, I was agnostic. I was ambivalent about the existence of God. I heard about Jesus, but I didn't know Jesus. In fact, I was just too preoccupied and distracted with life, navigating school, career, and relationships, that I really didn't pay any attention to God. And whenever I accidentally landed on Christian rock music on the FM radio station in the car, I would quickly change the channel. That's one way God tried to show up, and I actively turned away. So it wasn't until I was pregnant with my son, as the gift of life was literally growing inside of me, that an inkling of God was beginning to dawn on me. And without really knowing why, I began to think about God and even talk to God, putting my fears of whether I'd be a good mom out into the universe. That's 2 miracles, a life growing inside of me and my heart and my mind turning towards God. Later on, when my son was a toddler, my marriage was falling apart. And I found myself in a dark place that I could not climb out of. I felt utterly helpless and hopeless. And the only thing I could do was cry out to God. The miracle there was a strong, inexplicable internal drive that got my feet walking into church one Sunday with my son. Another miracle was getting to know Jamie, the senior pastor, and his wife, Rita, who took me in like godparents. Jamie and Rita prayed for me, surrounded me with community, and put the right books in my hand, and it became a springboard to a spirituality and a faith I didn't even know I had. I met Jesus in the face of a 97-year-old man named Dale. When he saw me walk through those front doors of the church for the very first time, his face lit up, and he received me as if I was a long-lost family member. As a military member relocating every 3 years, I never felt such a profound homecoming, not even in my own hometown. And I was deeply moved. That was another miracle. So I started to wonder and ponder about God. I hungered for Scripture, and Scripture became my food every day. Another miracle. One day I was walking down the street on a lunch break. I had some negative thoughts about myself at a stoplight. And when I look back on it now, it's really embarrassing and shallow. And what I was thinking was, I wish I had skinnier thighs. Then 3 stoplights later, I noticed an old man moving boxes of stuff from his car parked next to the sidewalk. And just as I was about to pass him by, he turned to me with a box in his arms and said, "You are beautiful." Now, the most unusual thing about this wasn't creepy. And he seemed reluctant. It was as if God put his hand on his face and turned it towards me and used his mouth to speak to me. This man looked just as surprised as I was. And then he simply went back to doing what he was doing as if nothing had happened. Wow, that was a miracle. After my baptism, after the divorce, and after a military relocation, which all happened within a few short months, grieving and feeling alone in a new town with no friends, no community, no family, I was having serious doubts about God's love for me. And one night before falling asleep, I said to God, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" Early next morning, my 3-year-old son comes bounding onto my bed, sits on top of me, grabs a hold of my face, and speaks into my heart, "I love you. I love you. I love you." That's a miracle. We sometimes see miracles as an end in itself, curing the sick, raising the dead, cleansing the lepers, casting out demons. But actually, miracles are signs pointing to God. Physical healing is wonderful, but it's a visible sign of a more profound, inner, and hidden reality. A mind turning towards God, a heart opening to God, a soul receiving God. And that's true healing, drawing closer to God, being reconciled to God, and receiving God's healing love. And this healing brings a sense of wholeness in our soul, a oneness with the divine, and a grounding in our belovedness that cannot be found anywhere else or in anything else. And miracles are not limited to the apostles, to saints, the clergy, or other holy people. Miracles are for everyone. They are signs pointing us to God. They are signs that God is drawing near to us. And when God draws near to us, it's an invitation for healing, for us to draw near to the source of life, to the source of our being. It's an invitation to be loved on by God. Creation is God's miracle. And when we go out into nature, we are surrounded by signs that point to the beauty and goodness of God. Jesus is a miracle, and his life story and the Gospels point us to God. And for the disciples, Jesus was literally this bright neon sign pointing them to God. The nature of God is that God is constantly self-giving, gifting us with life, light, love, peace, and joy, giving us the very things we need to heal and become whole. It's right there, all around us, for us to simply receive. If we loosen our grip on fear and contempt and our defensive postures, and open our hearts to God and trust God, then we will surely begin to see differently. It's like a misty fog dissolving, and God's wondrous works become more visible, making our hearts so glad. And this is a gift that keeps on giving. If you ever find yourself in darkness and can't see, recalling the past miracles in your life will remind you of God's faithfulness again and again. And it will give you the strength and the courage and hope to get through those tough times. It will be your food and drink when you are in a spiritual drought. Friends, miracles are happening all around us. They are signs pointing us to God's nearness, God's grace and mercy, God's care and delight in us, and God's healing love. As we accept these gifts, as God heals us, we become the miracle. And our very lives become the signs pointing to God. And as Jesus sends us out into the world to share the good news of God's miracles in the world. Thanks be to God.